telling a group of teenagers that I was trans and that, starting the next week, they'd need to call me Miss Barry, and we had extreme homophobia. Just the year before, we tried to celebrate Hobbit Day, and 75% of the student body boycotted coming to school because it was Gay Day. That was really hard for me because I knew that I was going to come out in this environment. This could be the dumbest idea ever. Welcome back to Narrative Pride. I'm Jenny B, and today I wanted to talk about employment and job searching and all the fun things. So, as a teacher, as a trans teacher, I'm in a field where there's an extra layer of political focus and concern around trans and LGBTQIA teachers in general. Particularly, and this is very much something that is a New South Wales problem at the moment, the potential for independent or religious schools to discriminate based on their beliefs against LGBTQIA teachers and employees. So, a little bit of my own story. So I came out at a public school in Victoria over a process, firstly with colleagues in December 2022, which went really well. All my colleagues were very supportive and very understanding, and I could not have asked for a better group of teachers. But that was extremely hard. I'm someone that's very upfront and wanted to do it in person, so I chose to actually address my 48 colleagues, a small group of which had known and were being supportive for some time in the background, but even knowing that I had those pockets of support and trusting most of these people and thinking very highly of them and knowing that quite a few of them were allies, it was, as I'm sure a lot of you can imagine, extremely confronting. But that went well, and then we had to establish the idea of coming out to students. We knew that would happen sometime over 2023. Partway in towards the end of first term, students started to stumble on some of my social media. Bound to happen. At the time, I didn't make the call to jump out and come out straight away after that. Wanted to see what students did, and I didn't want to be seen to be reacting. I wanted to have some control and do it on my terms and my way. So that was pretty important. A few weeks, almost a month into term 2, I was ready. I'd had a plan. I had support people in place, and I came out to my 3 individual classes on one day. I believe it was a Thursday. At the start and end of a couple of lessons. So that involved me actually telling a group of teenagers that I was trans and that, starting the next week, they'd need to call me Miss Barry, and, that I was open to some questions as long as they were respectful. But, not a whole lot had to change. I'm here to make sure that they had the best education. I'm here to help them, and I'm here to work together with them. I had another teacher in the room that was part of my support plan, and that coming out went pretty well. And we got a couple of questions in the different classes, and they were pretty respectful, which surprised me because the school environment was not good. We had extreme homophobia. Just the year before, we tried to celebrate Hobbit Day, and 75% of the student body boycotted coming to school because it was gay day. Um, that was really hard for me because I knew that I was going to come out in this environment, and like, oh my God, what am I doing? Like, seriously, this could be the dumbest idea ever. But I got to the point where I needed to come out. I needed to be me. I was me everywhere else, out in public, at home. I was just boy moding at work, and that was really taking a toll. Kids knew because social media, so it was time. The next period was very up and down. My classes were okay. The kids that I had a really good relationship with because I built a strong connection with as their teacher treated me fairly well. And some of them were great supports and couldn't have cared less. They were fantastic. But there were some other kids in the school environment that, accosted me, asked me really insensitive questions, would call me names, would misgender me deliberately, all of those things. And that was to my face, let alone what was going on behind my back. And as a teacher, I know the rumour mill and everything that goes on behind your back is pretty ugly. So, plus I had some spies. So I got a sense of how bad it was. But, I stuck it out and I was there for the rest of the year. We had a couple of incidents that were quite severe that we had to deal with. Some students got suspended. But it was obviously extremely hard. It was taking an emotional toll, and it meant that I couldn't really go into certain classes and do my role. And my role was supporting literacy in a school that had extremely low literacy. I was definitely the best person for that job, and any kid that I worked with benefited. But just because of the amount of abuse and the way that it would destabilise the classroom, I could not actually go and support these kids, which made me feel pretty bad about myself because that was my job, that's what I cared about, and that was a lot of my sense of satisfaction, was my ability to teach and to help students improve their reading and improve their understanding. And not being able to do that, particularly when it wasn't the students that I was actually trying to help that was causing all the problem, was really upsetting and was probably the driving force behind my decision to leave the school at the end of the year. Now, I didn't have to. The school was reasonably supportive. They had brought in some outside supports to try and educate staff and students, both for myself and for some students that we had at the school. But I just felt like, we probably needed to part ways. They could find someone to replace my role who could go into those spaces and work with those students that really needed it. But I could also find an environment where I wasn't being discriminated against and harassed. So lo and behold, started my job search, and one of the things that I found in interviews while I was really nervous and terrified about going into an interview, particularly the first couple as me, I actually found that I interviewed a lot better because at the end of the day, if they didn't like me because of how I presented, who cares? Here's what I know. I was confident in my content and I just smashed it. So I think I did about 4 interviews. All but one of them I was very satisfied with. And then finally got one of those and pretty much almost nailed that on the spot because I had to reorganise their timetable to get me in for a second interview due to a planned holiday. So they organised me to come in early so I could do this second interview. I was like, well, I'm in the box seat. If they're doing that, they really are keen on me. So I smashed out that interview too and got the job. And the environment is so much better. I'm so lucky. My colleagues that I have now are equally as supportive as the ones that I had at my previous school. And the students have been great. They're supportive of me. They really engage and are interested to learn from my experience, as well as everything that I have to teach them about English and writing and improving their work. But they're also supportive of other students at the school. You know, we have students at the school who are outwardly non-binary or trans, and the kids are fantastic. It really is heartwarming. So, like, I'd heard of these places, and being able to land one was just amazing. But really the important thing to remember here is that I'm lucky. Yeah, okay, not so much in the first workplace being harassed and accosted by a group of 8 students outside my office, but being able to find the workplace that I am, being able to be hired without any bias towards me because of who I am, it puts me in a rare position, not only as a teacher, as a trans teacher, but as a trans woman. There are a lot of people, particularly in other countries, US and UK at the moment, but other places in Europe, Africa, that literally, if they are LGBTQIA, cannot get work, that are harassed out of jobs, that are actually just fired for being LGBTQI, A plus, anything in that acronym. So particularly recently, the idea that Dr. Cass has come out that says that the selection of, or the evaluation of whether a transition should be judged as successful should be considered based on employment relationships and whether people can go out the house. That's complete BS, because so much of that is outside of our control, and it's up to the rest of the community. And the fact that, okay, well, they're not willing to hire a trans person, so of course we don't get a job because they discriminate against us. They harass us out of the jobs that we have, so we can't keep them. The unemployment rate for the trans community is ridiculous. But I'm lucky, and I know that, and I'm thankful of that, and I appreciate that, and I definitely wish that all the trans women, trans guys, non-binary people, the whole rainbow, had the same experience, because we deserve to be able to do our job and gain that sense of fulfillment and earn money and support ourselves, support our families. Unfortunately, things need to change for us to be able to do that with regularity, with consistency. Otherwise, my story continues to be a rarity. The stories out there that are even better than mine, where they haven't had to deal with that harassment at work, become figments of our imagination, just off in some fancy land. And this continual rhetoric against trans communities and trans people that represent us as threats, that denigrate us, it's just fueling that. It's legitimizing that discrimination.